Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 55 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Here we go.
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Have you got a health issue that just won't go away no matter what you try? Then welcome to the Revive Yourself podcast, where we reveal the secrets to long-lasting health by getting to the root cause of problems that no one else is talking about. So you can have more energy, clear skin, healthier hair, a leaner physique, more confidence, and most importantly, do the things you love and live the life you deserve. Here's your host, Ryan Martin.
So guys, welcome to episode 55. I hope you're well, hope you're all happy and healthy. And, I've been getting, as always, great feedback. Awesome show last week with Dr. Livingstone. Got lots of people messaging me saying they really liked how honest I was there and how Dr. Livingstone approached it. So that's awesome. And also, once again, everyone going through the free mini course has been lots of comments on that. And we've actually got a lot of guys who have joined our one-to-one courses through that because they've been struggling. So guys, if you are struggling and with a chronic issue, whether it be diabetes, thyroid issues, gut issue, a skin issue, whatever it is, guys, head on over to www.reviveyourself.co. You can enroll in our free 4-day mini course, which is going to teach you lots. And if you do want just a one-to-one coaching, want to get through it quick as possible and put these pains and frustrations behind you, then click on the contact, fill out the form, and I'll be me or one of my team will be in touch within 24 to 48 hours, and we can talk to you how we can help you through that. Because we got lots of testimonials come out recently. Once with Sally, who had so many different health issues. She was on 45 tablets a day, and we've completely, she couldn't get out of bed, pains everywhere, and we completely transformed her health, which I'm going to put on the website, but it's on my Facebook page. If you want to follow my Facebook page, obviously you've got the Revive Yourself page, Revive Yourself /natural health. And you also got my personal page, which is just a picture of my profile picture is me. There's the same profile picture actually as I got my podcast, so it's the blue background of me with a smoothie. You can add us up there. And also we just got Dave's testimonial coming out. Dave Charmley, who suffered for a long time with chronic fatigue. None of the doctors or specialists could help him, consultants, etc. The usual story. And, within 3 to 4 weeks, we turned it around, and Dave's story is phenomenal. So I want to get that out to everyone too. So yeah, guys, if you need any help, then don't hesitate to reach out and head on over to www.reviveyourself.co. Lots of free information there and all the podcasts. Anyway, on to today's show. Today's guest is Phil Escott, the author of actually Kindle bestseller Arthritis, the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, I really want to get Phil on here because his story is really powerful. He tried everything to reverse his arthritis. He went vegetarian, he went vegan, he'd been vegan for a long period of time. Nothing worked until he went on the carnivore diet where he just ate meat. And this has been something that happens for lots of people. I also want to get Sean Baker on the show soon. Sean Baker, MD, who's a heart surgeon. He's on the carnivore diet as well. And my take on things in the fitness world, especially, but even in the health world, especially, I should say. I would say fitness and health, but I know we're natural health, and I train because it's part of my lifestyle. But the fitness world's terrible when it comes to actual health, getting people healthy. It's great for losing weight and body shape, but when it comes to internal health, 99.9% of the stuff that they promote is garbage. And when it comes to health as well, there's so much dogma in the health industry around what to eat, what not to eat. Veganism is fastly becoming a religion, where people have just got they've just got a fear-based dogma around this is the only way you should eat. Well, if someone takes all the vegetables out of their diet and just eats meat and accuses themselves of arthritis, and other people have done it with depression, and other people have done it with all sorts of different chronic health issues, then it doesn't matter what the books say. You can't argue with results. Results are the only thing that matter. What works is the only thing that matters. So it's really important for me to get both sides of the story on here, because some people will thrive on a vegan diet, others won't. Some people will thrive on a carnivore diet, others won't, and the majority of people will sit somewhere in the middle. But it's really important for me to get every single different aspect out there, so you just start to understand that, guys, that we're all unique, and there isn't just one approach. And your body can change. One minute you can be wanting meat, next minute you can be wanting vegetables. It depends on your mental, emotional state, lots of different factors. So Phil's story is brilliant. I really can't wait for you to hear this interview, guys. He's got his own website at pureactivity.net, which we'll go into on the show. But without further ado, here's Phil, here's the episode, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey guys, episode 54, and we're here with Phil Escott from Lancashire. Now, Phil's a guy I got recommended to by a friend, and he's got a brilliant book out called, it's Kindle bestseller called Arthritis, the best thing that ever happened to me. He's the author of that, and you can find him at www.pureactivity.net. So Phil, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, it's awesome, mate. We've just been talking off air, and just while his son was getting out of the house, so didn't get any noise, etc. But we touched on so many brilliant topics. I was like, look, we've got to start the podcast now, because otherwise we would be rehashing things we've already said, and it's really interesting listening to Phil talk, and we agree on lots of different aspects. So, Phil, just for people out there, just tell them a little bit about your story. He's got a great video that you can watch on YouTube as well, talking about his top 10 tips for reversing autoimmune disease. But how did you get into this, Phil? What's your background? How did you get into sort of the natural health world?
Yeah, it's a funny old background. Well, all of my life I've been really fascinated with everything from health to spirituality to all that sort of thing, and moved up to where I live now because of the whole TM, Transcendental Meditation community, which I don't have a great deal to do with anymore. But it was a great part of my life. And, I got into the whole Ayurvedic vegetarian type thing. And since you find out Ayurvedic isn't actually vegetarian. But, yeah, so I got into all of that kind of thing and got very interested in diet, health and whatever. And by 96, I was, basically I'm a musician. That's what I am, a drummer. And done all sorts of other things and run a gym and all kinds.
See that behind you? You've got a big set of drums behind you, right?
Oh, yeah. There's a little stacked up, and those other ones are the practice ones, the electronic ones, yeah. But, so I seem to develop this whole interest in health alongside all of that. And I got so fascinated in it, I wrote my first book back in 96 on Ayurveda and exercise and, yoga, pranayama, all that kind of thing. And I thought I really understood a lot about it. I'd really, really researched and I'd experimented. I'd been into all kinds of diet, from the whole standard one through macrobiotic, vegetarian, vegan, all kinds of things I'd tried. And then, after I got rid of the gym, I owned that from about 97 until 2001, I think. After I got rid of that, I just forgot about everything, really, and got all fat and unhealthy. And by 2009, I really was overweight, and I thought, it's really time to get this sorted out. So I thought I'd start to apply some traditional methods and some of them, Ayurvedic and whatever methods to it, and say, let's start up a blog and follow my progress back to health. Little did I realize that 1 year later, I wouldn't be any better. In fact, I'd be crippled with psoriatic arthritis. And so clearly that the conventional things that I'd spent so much of my life digging into and rejecting and going other ways, still they weren't enough, obviously, to get me back to health. And I realized after probably a year of being that sick and doing more research that so much of what I discovered was just nonsense.
Yeah.
And old dogma, coming from the standard diet advice, the low-fat diet advice, even the old Ayurvedic and vegetarian sort of dogma that I had stuck in my head. All of these things were just not reflecting our ancestral heritage. And it seems very simple now when I can explain to somebody, probably in 5 minutes, how they can stay well and understand how to stay well. But it took me that many years, to discover. So, yes, I went through all sorts of stages as well after being that ill. I had a whole load of other things that were whispering at me for 10, 15 years, rosacea, all sorts of back pain, skin problems, fatty liver, cysts on the liver, cysts on the kidney, IBS, all kinds of things, just the regular things that break down in people that actually, when they're quite mild, you just think, oh, well, that's there. But then I started to discover a few things via the whole gut health thing, via Natasha Campbell McBride and the GAPS diet, and then a few other things. And then looking into the whole business of light, getting rid of artificial light, EMFs, getting the circadian biology in sync with nature again. And then suddenly things started to come together, and I found myself actually in the best shape of my life. This was also with all the emotional things, also the emotional roots of it. Like it's all very well getting rid of the process and the inflammation, but why did, say, the arthritis go into one knee and not another? Why did it go into my ankles and not my elbows? Why does it? Rheumatologists can never answer this. But to me, it's an emotional thing. The gut might break, the light is wrong, the cells go wrong, the deuterium's not being depleted from the cells, but then the emotions run riot, directing it to its points of the most stress, and the whole thing works hand in hand.
I'm just gonna start because you said the deuterium. I want to go in that later on. And this is something where doctors, they sort of come at, maybe a few of them, a fraction, come over to the metaphysical side of things and mental, emotional side, and it's so true. I mean, I was talking to you off air. I was talking about Paul Chek. He says, no one can describe, or there's no scientific test for love. We all know it exists. We can feel it. When you're in love, you can go batshit crazy when you're in love with someone, or you can do whatever. But there's no scientific test to prove it exists. But we all know it's there. This is the same with the metaphysical, right? And the mental, emotional stresses that we go into, and how it affects our health. And this is why I was talking to you about offline. I used to say nutritional therapist. I always say now I'm a holistic health coach, because what we do is so much more than just diet. Because you said if your mental, emotional state's not right, if you're getting bombarded by electromagnetic frequencies, if you're not getting direct sunlight, if you're not, these all things play a big part. But so quickly, I just want to say, you've gone through, you're doing things that were conventional, and when you were in pain before you actually started to heal, were you still following these things, even though? Because you thought, well, it's going to work sometime. Were you still following these things, even though you were in pain?
No, I was not that daft to think that what I'd always done was going to help.
Oh, some people, I will tell you, some people.
I know.
Because they think it's written in the textbook, and so they keep on having it. Even when they eat it, they feel terrible, but they go, yeah, but it's written in the book, or my doctor has told me to have it. Well, when did your brain? I always say this, when did your brain kick in? And say, well, every time I eat this, I feel terrible. So yeah, just expand on that for us.
Well, this is, I have friends up here in this community, and I get I get a lot of people angry with me for saying so, but in this community there's a lot of vegetarians, and there's a huge rate of cancer and autoimmunity, and I had two friends die within 3 hours of each other last year, one of pancreatic, one of a brain tumor, and I get in real trouble for calling them out on it, for saying, look, I think I can see the influences that are causing this in the north of England, this sort of Southern Indian diet in the north of England. It's just not working. So yes, I did, but because I had the vegetarian brainwashing, I thought, okay, what I need to do is to go even more vegetarian. So I'll go vegan, so I'll go raw vegan, so I'll do all the juicing. Yes, it can be very effective in the short term, but I also think there's other ways around it, because in the end, it does actually, the whole Gerson therapy and thing, for example, I can see how that comes down to deuterium depletion as well. But it's not sustainable long term. People think, oh, great, that worked. So then, and I fell into that. I stayed in it too long, and I lost all my muscle.
Same
and
here,
I ended up from I don't know, I was about 15 stone, and I ended up at about 10 stone. And then I discovered cold thermogenesis and burned off, or froze off rather, the last stone, and ended up for the first time in my life ripped. But it was at 9 stone, and so it didn't look that great. And so I had to be a prisoner of war. I had to fight my way back. And so that's what the sort of the vegan thing did. So yes, I did in a sense go further down the wrong path, but at least I did change. And then one day I think I was just so desperate when I was thinking, I've got brain fog, I'm in trouble, I'm emaciated, certain things have improved because I cut all the grains out, that kind of thing. But a lot of other things, I still have inflammation, muscles are wasting away, all sorts of things are still going on. And one day I just thought, sod it. And I took a whole load of painkillers and went down to the Chinese buffet. And I stuffed myself with every bit of meat I could find. And this is not an ideal fast breaker, But I was desperate. I thought, I've had enough of this. And suddenly my body was just saying, yes, I need this. And the brain fog was still there, I remember. I was walking from room to room, and I just didn't know what I was doing. So I'd go into a room and I'd forget. And I remember one day I was standing there, and my daughter, who's 9 now, she was like 2 at the time, and I was trying to cook something which had burned, and then I had some water running in the sink, and it was flying off a plate and soaking my own legs. I didn't even know. She had to come in and tell me. I was that brain fogged, and I'd around this time discovered Jack Cruz, and he'd been going on about the whole fish thing, and I ate pretty much nothing but fish for a week, and the whole of my brain capacity came back again. It just shows that those kind of diets although they can be medicinal for a while, they can deplete you enormously in the long run. So I had to change absolutely all of my dogma and come back round. So when people see that I go on about sort of 100% carnivore diets now, particularly for autoimmunity, it's always been known in every culture. Natasha Calmette-Bride said nothing new, and in Ayurveda it's there. From thousands of years ago, people think it's a vegetarian science, and the Charak Samhita is saying meat is the most nourishing food possible for the body. So, we've come a long way from just thinking, well, the Inuit and the Maasai are healthy. They don't have this stuff.
Well, the thing is, with it, sort of put on there, right? It's two things. We talked about off air. We're talking about how everyone seemed to help people now. It's people that have been through this, people that have been ill and they found their ways through it, which is huge because it's showing that they've lived it, they've gone through it, and he said, I was like you, I went vegan. It healed me for a long time because I was getting rid of so much toxic rubbish out of my body, and I was eating poor quality meat, and then I got to a point where it wasn't doing me the world of good. I still eat lots of plant-based foods, and I'm probably more balanced diet than you, which we'll get onto, which you talked about, but then I did introduce like my grass-fed beef and chicken, etc., and I felt phenomenal again. And Paul Chek talks about it as well. So a lot of other guys, like raw bros out there, they tried going raw vegan for a long time. They started to lose their testosterone. They started to feel brain fogged again. They lost their libido. I deal with loads of vegans that come to me and they say, well, I'm really healthy, I'm vegan. I say, but that's probably what's doing it. You haven't had a period in 5 months. Your hair's falling out, your teeth are rotting. And so when you look at Dr. Weston Price as well, he went and studied all these tribes. He said the only people that didn't eat meat were the tribes that it wasn't readily available. Whenever meat was readily available, it was the sacred meat. It was what they ate. So
exactly, yeah, always the most celebrated in every culture.
And this is the thing, right? So when you're saying this to me, it's making complete sense because you've had to. It's like the way that you say, for example, the way that we know more than doctors in terms of this, in terms of helping people, is because we've lived it, right? And then you've tried the vegetarian and vegan. It worked for some things, didn't work for others. You've gone to carnivore, and that's worked for you. So veganism right now is becoming like a religion. It's almost like trying to tell a Jew to become a Christian or a Muslim to become a Jew. People are so caught up in the dogma of it, they don't realise. And say a dogma is just like a belief you have about something that isn't true. It doesn't matter how much evidence shows you it, vice versa. Because even if one person in the world does phenomenally well on an all carnivore meat-based diet, that still proves that there's always an exception to the rule. Which proves there are no rules. And I always say, you just do what works, right? And it's brilliant that you're saying this because people need to understand that Phil's been through it. He's been through this. And in fact, he even told me offline, we're going to go into it about how they actually ruined his son's health by going this way. And I always talk about these things with people. So it's really interesting. You've got to listen to guys like Phil because they've been down it. It hasn't worked. And in fact, it caused more detriment to his health than good. And so I just wanted to put that out there for people, You need to listen to people who've been through it because there's no one way. And that's the problem, I think, in the health industry right now. Vegans getting a huge sort of upsurge. But, low fat had a huge upsurge and going paleo. And this is like, it's the quality. And don't just listen to one side, I think the problem comes in when people don't add light and latitude to the equation. Of course. Because the planet knows best. If you're healthy and in balance, you're out in the sun, your feet are on the ground, and you can pick a banana off the tree, then by all means eat it. But if even in that situation, if you've already got some metabolic disease, it's probably better to go the other way for a bit, and then you'll be able to return to a time, hopefully, when the sun is clearing the deuterium, the sun is there enough for you to process those foods. In the north, in the winter, in Skelmersdale, where I live, in Lancashire, it's really not a good idea to be bananas or fruit that is imported. It's confusing the body. It's upsetting the whole circadian biology, and so it depends where you are. If somebody likes fruit and veg and whatever, I think
I think fruit is probably fine in the sun. And I think berries, there's a lot going for it, with the polyphenols and whatever, even to add to a carnivore diet. But I think veg is massively overrated. I think with people with autoimmunity, particularly, there's so much more. If you enjoy it and it really does you no harm and you're listening to your body honestly, then by all means eat it, go for it. But I see tremendous, I work with a lot of people with autoimmunity, and I see amazing benefits when they drop the last of the veg. It's like they're almost there. And I saw a great explanation for this from Chris Kresser, apart from the deuterium aspect. But
is it about the mechanisms they have for defending themselves, plants?
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, they do have that, but it's also because, and I used to notice this when I was really ill, I used to notice that if I did mess up and had a big bar of chocolate or something, it wouldn't really hurt me. But if I had a load of starchy veg, even kind of low-carby broccoli, cauliflower things, I'd get affected. And I'd think it can't be, because that's real natural food. But actually, then Chris Kresser pointed out that very much linked to things like psoriatic arthritis and ankylosing spondylitis, stuff like that, is the Klebsiella bacteria, which lives further down in the digestive tract. So when you're putting all those sugary starches or whatever from the vegetables down into the gut, it takes a long time to get through the cellulose. So it's carrying it further down into the gut, creating more activity with these Klebsiella and triggering the autoimmune response. And suddenly a light bulb went off, and I thought, I've heard this time and time again. People can actually get away with simple sugars. I'm not saying a sugary bar of Cadbury's chocolate is any good for you. It's not. But it causes less hassle when you're ill quite often with something inflammatory than a load of vegetables do. So I think, if you're fine with them, absolutely great. I don't miss them at all. I never really liked them. Now, I do like fruit. I do like berries and stuff. And when the sun comes out again in the summer, I'll start eating some berries again. And if they disagree with me, then I won't. But apart from that, I only eat meat now. And I seem to see that it's totally safe. Do I think it's for everybody? No, I think do exactly what you want. But just to make it public that if nothing else is doing it, have a go at this, and it is safe. That's all I say to people, because I see that last amazing successes happen just when they drop the last bit of veg out. Even like you were mentioning before we came on, Sean Baker, who's the doctor who started off this whole World Carnivore Month and stuff, very vocal about it all. He was a healthy guy, already very low carb, and the improvements he had to his performance and his health by dropping out the last of the veg about 15 months ago, I think it was now, is amazing to read, and I see it over and over again. Will it work for everybody? I don't know. I think it's a bit of a miraculous thing at the moment, and I've yet to see any disasters on it. But no, I don't say everybody should, but it is again, I think, very much down to climate and environment. You're going to get away with a lot more starches and carbohydrates the further south you go. And
even more your genetic predisposition to foods, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, we talk about epigenetics a lot. You're never going to get ill if you're never going to express those genes if you live in a certain way. But if you're in a state where you are ill and you've got autoimmune response, etc., going on, and you start eating foods that your body's genetic expressions don't want, they're going to cause a problem as well, especially if you're not in that area. And I was talking about before, lots of people, so what Phil was talking about there, about bacteria in your gut and not breaking things down, I noticed it myself with certain foods. It wasn't until I got myself well. And one of the other things, which I think I mentioned it a couple of times on the show, is, certain plants are when you see people get a reaction to things, it's generally not chicken or meat, or, I don't eat certain fish because of raw fish because of parasites and things like that, so it's a completely different thing, but it's generally not meat or poultry, or beef or lamb. It's generally a reaction to a plant-based food or a starchy food, because what happens is that these animals, when they're in the wild, they have got claws or they've got something where they can actually defend themselves, okay? So it's like if we're trying to kill an animal for its food, they've got something to defend itself. It's the way Mother Nature gave them something to defend themselves. Whereas these plants, they sit there and they haven't got any way to defend themselves, except for they have certain chemicals that they produce, etc. So that if we ate them, they'd cause a massive problem with our health or our gut. And it's their way of saying, it's weird. It's the way that Mother Nature gave them to defend themselves, and trying to make this in layman's terms as simple as possible. Because if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't know. So these plants have been given that as a mechanism. So when you eat them and you get a problem, it's either you're not ready for them, or you haven't cooked them properly, or say you just can't digest them. So you don't really see autoimmune conditions when it comes to meat. You see them when it comes to plants, because that's what they've been given. If you see it, I think in watching a show, it's why like animal cats, for example, they're surrounded by say vegetation. Very only a few of the animals out there. You see gorillas obviously eat vegetation, but wild animals, they could be sitting there eating grass all day long. They don't eat grass. I mean, obviously what they're meant to be eating, but if they wanted to, they say, I haven't found an antelope yet, I could just go and sit here and eat a bushel of whatever. They don't. One of the reasons, obviously, they're not meant to, but also I'm guessing they probably have tried it down the line and they know it just doesn't work for them. So you need to understand this, and it's really, really important, I think, that when you're getting these reactions, healthy foods, just because someone says an avocado is healthy, if you're ill or if you get an autoimmune condition, avocados, things like that, are not great for people. I've seen people get reactions to everything because their body has a response to it, and that's something that Phil's saying that you need to understand, and definitely where you live and how you live plays a massive part in that.
Yeah, and I think, as you said earlier on, that meat is probably the most celebrated food among any culture. They don't celebrate when they bring some tuber back. They celebrate a big kill, and they eat the other stuff when they have to, because they've got no funny morals built up about it, and we just do eat like that.
We'll get onto that.
So,
we'll get onto that as well.
Yeah. But all I think is that now that meat is probably the safest and most easy to digest food, which everybody thinks is nuts, but actually it is. And you see, there's a study on PubMed somewhere, and it's great, where they cut all the fiber out of people's diets. These people with constipation, probably thinking that it will ruin them, and they found out that in every case it improved it. There's about 2 weeks change over time, where the bowel sort of sorts itself out. But I've never known such good digestion as I have without the last of the plants, and I see this again and again. So I think when people do elimination diets, they quite often eliminate back to the foods that are problems. They'll go back to some kind of vegetable broth or something, and then introduce things. And I think, well, if we knew how safe meat was, because all the studies are done on McDonald's eaters who eat the bun and all the Diet Coke and fries and pizza as well. So meat studies are nonsense anyway. Nobody ever studied anybody who only eats grass-fed beef.
Well, they're studying Homer Simpson, right? And it's just pointless.
Yeah, exactly, bang on. Yeah, so, it for me, it's just to say that to take it back to that is probably the basic food, and then reintroduce whatever you like and see what it's like. But the way that the physiology calms down when you take it all the way back to meat, and I think every culture's known this, the old chicken soup for the soul. You've got that chicken broth thing. You've got all the bone broths.
Bone broths are phenomenal.
Yeah, amazing. That Natasha Campbell McBride's on about. I mean, that healed my gut up doing the whole GAPS thing.
You mentioned Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, and she's brilliant. Talk about and it's her work as well as Donna Gates. I'm a big fan of Donna Gates. And she's talking about the thing you're talking about there. It's not just people. I always talk about this with my clients. But not just people eating the wrong food. It's also they combine them in the wrong ways. So they talk a lot about food combining. So I'm just putting it out there. Like if you sat there, I had this. If I sat there and ate a big salad, fine. If I sat there and ate a big salad, combined it with potatoes and meat, I could have an issue, But if I ate my meat on its own, we talk about this a lot of the time, like people eating fruit with things that ferment in their gut, all these things that we're doing. If we were walking back when we were primitive, we find berries on the tree, we'd eat the berries, or we'd say, generally we probably eat things on their own individually, and we could digest them. But people are just putting all these different combinations of food in their gut, and they're wondering why they got an issue.
Yeah, yeah. I was reading. There's a book, The Fat of the Land, by Stephenson, Wilhelmus Stephenson or something. Okay. Great book, written like 1920, 30 or something. And he did all these. He was a polar explorer, and he lived with the Inuit. And he ended up coming back. The docs didn't believe that he'd been, years on an Inuit diet without getting scurvy because he had no vitamin C and all that sort of thing. And so they put him on it.
But the animals have got vitamin C.
Yes, they say that. But is there enough by our standard things? Probably not. So it might work by a different pathway. It's just, again, there's a load of old dogma there. It might be enough in there. There might not be. Who knows? But yeah, he came back, and then they put him on this diet, this whole only meat diet for a year in some laboratory conditions, and they found that all he did was get healthier and leaner, and with some other guys as well. And so everybody says, oh well, the study's no good if it's only with 2 people, but it's the only one we've got. But yes, your point was good, because he was just mentioning a bit that I was reading yesterday, that when they say that a certain tribe or a certain culture's diet was, say, 70% meat, 30% fish, that you feel that they might be mixing it up. Actually, they're not. They might go months with only one food source. And then as the season changes, it goes to another food source. So they might be eating fish, in the autumn, and they might be eating land mammals all the way through the summer. And so nature doesn't give you such a varied diet. We get this thing like this ridiculous eat well plate and whatever. Let's do a balanced diet, and you have to have this many grains and this many this, and all of this crap in the same day. I notice even sweets are on the eat well plate these days. So, all of this crap with a big low-fat caveat at the bottom. And so, yeah, people ate a lot more simply, just mono foods for a while. So eating has become too much of a recreation for us, and not enough of just, fueling ourselves with electrons, which is basically all it is. So, yeah. And also, you mentioned about the combining thing. And another interesting thing people don't realize is that in nature, sugars and fats never occur in the same thing. As soon as there's a fruit without sugars, like an avocado, it's full of fats. So it doesn't really occur except in breast milk. And so that's the only time we should really be taking these things, whereas most of our addictive foods are carbs and fats mixed together. Crisps, chips,
bliss factor,
fries. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, biscuits, chocolate, sugary chocolate. All of these things, these addictive things, are sugar mixed with fats, which we never get, which never happens in the wild. And so we get tremendously addicted to this, and it's something that we're never designed to. Just 99% of what we eat is nonsense. I look through people's trolleys in the supermarkets, and my surprise is not that there's an autoimmune epidemic, but that anyone's escaped it.
that anyone hasn't got cancer. I always talk about this. Our body's phenomenal, and it can deal. Our body can live off cardboard if it has to. I'm not saying it's going to make you healthy, but in the studies on this, I think the rats talking about they give one group of rats cereal, they gave the other group of rats cardboard, and the ones that eat cardboard live longer.
The cornflakes.
Yeah. So
one of my talks, I said about this. Why were cornflakes invented? To stop you wanking.
Mr. Kellogg, yeah.
Yeah, to bring everybody's libido down and control them.
But they're part of a healthy breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah.
So cavemen were waiting around for millions of years waiting for Cocoa Pops to be invented. I don't think so. They just ate what they'd eat at any other meal.
I talk about this in my seminars. I say, kids are given. We talk about kids having ADHD and not being able to sit down and all these other symptoms saying you're disruptive. And we give them breakfast. He had cereal with and what was on that cereal? Milk. Okay, so you're giving him a dead food with no enzymes in it, which is full of artificial sweeteners and 47 to 53% sugar. Then sprayed with glyphosate and pesticides and whatever else. And then you're pouring on that cereal more sugar, dead sugar that's been pasteurised, homogenised from dead animals, basically like animals that are diseased, and you're wondering why he's got a problem. And it's it's not he's got ADHD, it's his diet's completely. What do you expect? You're giving him dead food, no enzymes in there, complete sugar, and good luck.
But to be really healthy, then chop a banana on it. In the middle of the winter in the north of England. It's mad.
It's just
so
mad.
Even when you try, the information isn't there. It's no wonder people don't get well. And the docs say to me when I was sick, diet will never have any effect whatsoever. Well, okay, if you give up toast for a week and then somebody isn't totally cured of their raging RA, then absolutely, that's what they're basing it on. You have to go miles. I mean, the amount of things we have to do. My mum's 94, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer a couple of years ago, and she showed it to me. It was 8 centimeters by the time she bothered to say anything. And actually, I'm glad it was, because all the years back when it probably started, I would have probably let her go in for conventional treatment, and she would have been dead by now. Yeah.
My nan happened to my nan, mate. 6 weeks, she was dead.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Well, we've reversed it.
No, of course, yeah. You haven't. What? Without chemo and radiation and surgery? No.
No, it's daft, isn't it? Yeah. So obviously I'm lying and it's just anecdotal. But, we've got pictures. I got pictures of this horrendous tumour that was coming through the skin, and it was all purple, about to ulcerate. And then away it went. We started off with the regular things. She went on practically an all-meat diet, so forget that for being carcinogenic. We tried it with all the mushrooms and all that kind of thing, all the reishi and cordyceps, and we hit with everything, Essiac tea, all of that, and the cannabis oil. But, she's 94. She got a bit sick of being mashed every day. So we stopped with the cannabis oil because we weren't using the CBD. We were using the naughty stuff because I think that's where the power is, if it's there at all.
Naughty stuff, air quotes, naughty stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Ridiculous, isn't it? So, yes, and it started shrinking. But then she'd had enough of that, and so we had to stop it, and it started to come back again. So obviously I was looking for one more piece of the puzzle, and suddenly it's funny, isn't it? You just really research and you look at it, and then I thought, iodine. This is absolutely brilliant for fibrocystic breast syndrome and whatever. People who have anything wrong with breast tissue, it's usually an iodine problem. And let's see what happens.
Cysts in general, like a lot of things, iodine deficient.
Absolutely, yeah. So we loaded her up with that, at quite a high dose for 3 months, and then tapered it off. And I'd forgotten about it. I thought it won't work. I hadn't realized that. Well, I hadn't really taken notice of the people who'd done it saying quite often it doesn't have any effect till 4 or 5 months after the loading phase. And then suddenly it disappears. One morning I'd kind of given up. I thought, well, okay, we'll just keep her as healthy as we can. And the oncologist has said he'll cut this lump out under a local if it ulcerates. So I thought, okay, well, it's all right. And then suddenly one day she said it's going away. And I thought, yeah, okay. Let's have a look. Honestly, it was like half the size. The skin had come back to normal. It was amazing, and it's continued to improve since then. And so I just got her on a very, very small dose of iodine, and also still on it's almost a keto diet. She has such a sweet tooth. She's 94. I go, what the hell? So she has some, Greek yogurt with some berries and a bit of honey now and again, but that's about it. Yeah. Apart from that, very ketogenic diet. And it's amazing at that age, you can make improvements like that. I think it took a while. I think that lump had been there for so long. But apart from that, she must have had the thing for about 8 years, by which time most people would be panicked and full of chemicals and had their breasts cut off and radiation and everything, where she was asymptomatic. I think cancer, there's too much of a panic. You do have a lot longer than people think. Mate. If you get diagnosed with it, sit back and research, because if you panic, number one, you'll get the fear, and number two, you'll get the chemo. Stress. And how many people, as you said, how many people are given sort of 6 months to live and a week later they're dead? It's the sheer panic that cancer is.
You tell someone they got 6 months to live, they're going to live 6 months generally, because it's like the power of the mind's huge. It's something we're going to get into. It's just, if you 60% of people that did nothing survived their cancer. It's like if you do nothing rather than going and get your treatment, which is, we say, it's got like a very short percentage of people that get past. You're giving your body pure uranium. Good luck with that radiation. And they say it's one of the things truth about cancer. They say cancer's not a death sentence. It's the body just crying out for help, and it is a self-healing entity. Like once you give it certain things, that unless you're too far gone. It's got miraculous, and you say these tumours, as you say, a lot of them they take before you even notice it. They take you have to work at cancer. You have to before you even notice, you get 10, 15 years of working on it. So people say, I'm all right, yeah, but you don't know what's going on inside your body. This is why we always talk about prevention being better than cure, because you want to do things right. And look, it's all about damage limitation, because everyone wants to live a good life, have a bit of fun, and go out and do whatever and be sociable, because we're social beings. And even these tribes, they had food for the soul, where they probably, like the Red Indians, did certain things, But if you're doing things right 80-85% of the time, because people always say, all these, I only do this, but you do it, yeah, but mate, you do that every day, and it's like, well, I don't want to be taking this. Yeah, but the reason we don't have blue light at night, and the reason that I do intermittent, if I fast every day until I only eat twice a day, the reason that I take certain supplements, or I always buy organic food, and I don't have I have chemical free like soap and skin wear, etc., etc. All these little things add up, So it means that when I do step out and I'm a little bit naughty, I don't get the backlash that I would if my body's already been exposed to, because we're not. I always say we're not in 1940 anymore. We're in 2018, and we've got Wi-Fi, and we've got these things that are right here, mobile phones, and we're at a different stage. And as much as people say, it's an evolution, we evolve. Yeah, well, the human genome hasn't evolved that much in the last 60 years to the point where it can take all this abuse without having problems. So I completely understand where you're coming from, and sitting back, analysing, reviewing things, saying, well, you know what am I doing wrong here? Am I exposing myself to this frequencies all the time? Is my shampoo toxic? Is my soap toxic? Is my running water toxic? Because you're not just drinking that water, you're brushing your teeth in it, you're washing your clothes in it, you're cooking your food in it, and it's all these little percents all add up. And if you cut them away, all of a sudden you've got 40% less toxins coming in your body daily. That's huge, right? Before you even get to the diet part. So This is why we say like the diet's the big thing, because we talked about. I'm going to get you to talk about this. He talks about off air. He said the reason you talk about diet so much is because people eat every day, and it's also, you mentioned something else about blue light. People be like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I sort of understand that. But when it comes to diet, there's so much dogma around it. You need to almost get it out there. And I've just seen one of your posts where you put that up about Sean Bacon. I really want to get him on the show. He's talking about that. At 50 years old, he's breaking world records in the rowing for his performance. And you put a video up about. And you said, look, at the end of the day, I don't really care about what you eat. I just want you to see the other side of things. And you got a guy on there, come on, Gerald, I think his name was, abusing you, saying whatever, that you do care about what people eat, you couldn't put this up, whatever. It's like, no, I honestly don't. I just want you to understand that things aren't black and white. And, this dogma we're being sold about being vegan, etc., isn't the answer for everyone. I mean, you even found that out with your son, right?
Yeah. Well, Jed, he comes up quite a bit. He's actually a real old friend of mine. He's one of the TMers, and I've known him for a long, long time. He's actually pretty open-minded, but he keeps on having a problem about thinking that it's like you got one side to carnivores and one side to vegans, and we're arguing about which is the best diet. It's really not what's going on at all. It's just that Sean was going on about the real aggressive trolls among the vegans, and it's very easy to think that for most vegans they're just chilled out. They've just got the wrong kind of idea about exactly what happens in the human body. Because very often veganism is the first change that people make. They eat in one certain way, then they go vegan. Like if you find some 100% carnivore, generally they've been everything else. You know what I mean? Because it's so much dogma to cut through to get to that they've actually among them are some of the best healing stories and the most educated people in the low carb, the carnivore, all that kind of thing. They seem to have actually tried everything else. But yeah, with the vegans is it just the aggression that comes across. But and it's understandable if they're thinking they really are saving the planet and they really are saving the environment and it is good for your body. But actually, when you look deeper into it, the old thing of the amount of animals that get chewed up by the vegan diet at harvest in the combine harvesters, the amount of land that's taken away from whole species, the ecosystems that are destroyed by the grain and the soy plantations. And then they always say, well, most of this is fed to the animals that you eat. And well, actually, I don't eat them. I eat grass-fed animals. But they have got a point. And I'm happy to join with the vegans in some protest outside feedlot places and factories.
I think we all sort of stay there, right? Yeah, no one wants that.
Thinking that we are actually vegan. There's never been a culture that is, and it doesn't really work long term, and it isn't as moral as you think. But so that's what happens underneath these threads, and why I talk to Jed is because he's an old friend. Generally, if I come under vegan attack now, I've learned to ignore it because, like Sean, except for making his vid that he did recently, because it just becomes so illogical. They're always quoting studies and weirdly sort of bending science. And then when they ask for studies and you give them some, then they say, where are the studies? It's weird. It's like they can't see it. And so there's really no point talking to the militant ones. Like somebody who's fanatical about anything. I'm not really having a go at vegans. I'm really not. I'm having a go at that mindset.
Yeah, it's fanaticism. Yeah, So when you talk about this as well, first of all, people go vegan for the first time, or even you can be an unhealthy vegan. You can sit there eating Mars bars and
exactly.
Bread, but most people, if they go vegan and they're trying to be healthy, they cut out processed foods and refined grains, and they cut out all the bad things. The chocolate, the soda, and also they feel good. It's like, well, of course, you've cut out all the crap, and your body's cleansing. But I interviewed Leah Keith, who really good book, Vegetarian Myth, and we talk about monocrops and how they're destroying the planet. And look, we're all about, we don't want our animals sitting in cave foods up to their knees in their own feces, eating corn and dust and sawdust and plastic pellets and petroleum and rendered food and all these things, because no one wants that. We're talking about, this is a book out. It's Farmers for 40 Centuries by Franklin Hiram, who looked at the organic farming in China and said, look, he compared it to the American farming, and they were able to grow on, I think it was like 5 acres, what an American farmer could grow on 40 or something like that. And so they talk about how organic farming is absolutely sustainable for the world, but they try and tell you it's not with all this GMO crap and all this, because is it population control? I don't know, you make your own mind up about that.
I know, it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult not to be a conspiracy theorist when you see how it all ties in with the big companies
it's like,
that make the pesticides. and the pharmaceuticals
Why
and
would they do
everything,
it
they're all the
otherwise?
same companies. Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
it's weird. It's like conspiracy theory. It's like, no, what's conspiracy? It's just someone trying to do something without people knowing, right? It's like a secret thing going on without people knowing. So conspiracy theory, and then people like come out there and like the vaccines and everything else. It's like whistleblower. I don't know. If it's that, or if they're just so stupid that they think that these things we're above nature. We're the only population, we always say, only thing in the world that thinks we're above nature. You know, I always say, you never see a rattlesnake out there with dementia. You never see an alligator that's overweight. You know, because we're the only ones that try and do things differently and wonder why you got all these issues. Oh, it's down to bad luck. No. You've been taking the royal piss, and now you're ill. You know, get back in the box, do things right, and it's amazing how the body responds. And I was talking about, there's so many people come to me, Ryan, I'm trying to get healthy. I watched this documentary on Netflix called What the Health, and now I've gone vegan. Yeah, and now I've gone vegan. And I'm like, right. I said, well, going vegan for a lot of people, short term can be phenomenal because you're cleansing your body, but long term it has a lot of issues. I deal with that, and I try and explain that to people. And also, who's made these documentaries? I always say, like, some people quote studies, and I look into it, and straight away, someone was quoting a study about, I can't remember what it was about the other day, and I looked into it, and straight away it was funded by what's it called? The one of the big companies, the 5 big companies in America that run all the food, 90% of the food supply. Can't remember what it was. Anyway, it was funded by one of them, and I was like, it's bought and paid for, mate. Like, you're quoting me studies that have been bought and paid. I'll remember it in a minute. And it's the same with What the Health. Who's funded this documentary? And what results are they trying to? You say scientists these days are modern day prostitutes. You know, they give you whatever results you want as long as you pay them enough. And What the Health, comparing, I think, eggs to cigarettes. Like,
yes, I know, it's funny, isn't it? And chicken causes diabetes, apparently.
Yeah, not sugar, fat. Right, yeah.
No, they're really weird. That's such a weird one. And there's a great one where there's Zed Dog or something, isn't there, on YouTube? A real doc watches What the Health. I always advise people to watch that with him. There's about 10 minutes of it where it's quite a funny one, where he's just sitting there going, oh no, and then refuting the points one after another. But yeah, they're funny, those documentaries. They play on people's really good hearts and good nature. Because, you know, there's that, and there's cowspiracy and forks over knives. And and all of these.
This is why people are so confused, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, it's very easy to see that you come to that. I mean, I probably believed that, although I didn't adhere to it because I was never that moral. And so I didn't go veggie for moral reasons. I went veggie because I thought it was more yogi-like, you know. That was my motivation, really. So I wasn't so stuck in it. But you can see that if people get past that, if people haven't been sick yet, it's their first dietary change and they watch What the Health. I mean, there was a lady, I forget her name now, but she's another one of these great, very knowledgeable, low-carb ones who's cured stuff. And she'd put some post up, and then she got under terrible vegan attack underneath. And one of them was on about this and all this stuff, and then she just started her reply with, "I understand that you've watched Cowspiracy and now fancy yourself an expert." And I thought that just summed it up, really. The thing is, I sound like I'm taking a piss, but really, it comes from a good heart. They do, they care. But if they look at the reality of it, and there's no way around it, that every diet has an environmental impact. And what about compassion for our own bodies? You know, what about if the universe is all one? If you're in tremendous pain, I think your views change. Mine did. I'd have eaten anything. I'd have done anything. At the height of my agony, I'd have murdered and eaten my neighbor if I'd have thought that it would cure.
Right.
So I defy a vegan who is in tremendous agony with rheumatoid arthritis to not think, do you know what? If I ate a steak and I got better, I'd have a go. It changes your perspective completely. And they don't seem to have a problem with lions. They don't stand there on the Serengeti getting between lions and antelope. And then they say, oh, well, but we don't have to eat meat. No, we're just the only species stupid enough to ignore our ancestral nature. Right, this is what we've eaten. This is what we've eaten. You know, have compassion and acceptance for the fact that, yes, we are carnivores stroke omnivores if we have to be. What the hell? Get over it. And then cause the least suffering as possible. And I think, actually, then they go, oh, well, we can't feed the planet on that. Well, yes, if they rearrange the land, they could. But perhaps insects are the answer. Perhaps we're going to start having to eat insects and stuff, because that, you know, eating insects, weird as it is in our culture, it's perfectly accepted in others. And it's a hell of a lot better than soy and grains for, you know, that. a diet of grasshoppers and worms is not going to trigger your autoimmunity.
Well, no, madness. They even start putting parasites in people to try and stop autoimmune conditions now, haven't they? Like different worms. But I mean, you're talking about there
helminth therapy.
Yeah. Which, I mean, autoimmunity for me, it's like the body attacking itself. It's like the body's never going to attack itself. It's actually trying to attack something else. This is why the word autoimmunity, it sort of does my head in a little bit. Because people say, "Oh, my body's attacking itself." Yeah, but why is it doing that? It's not attacking itself because it's not stupid. It's attacking something that he thinks is there. And you talk about there's a famous guy who's a vegan who goes around, and I always say, I mean, if that's what looking like vegan is, I don't want to look like it. It's like he's got a scrap of muscle on him, and I'm like, he looks some of it. He goes around talking to farmers like, "Why are you doing this? The animal doesn't want to die." But it's like, and I look at people, and I'm just like, mate, you understand? Like, this is where talk about compassion for animals, and the animal didn't want to die. I'm pretty sure that zebra crossing the lake or the river in Africa didn't want to die either. But when the alligator or crocodile gets it, there's nothing compassionate about that. That's nature. And people talk about the best way. I know that the best way for me to try and help the planet and to try and help other people is being the healthiest version of me. Now, if I take meat out of my diet, I'm not going to be the healthiest version of me. I've done this test on myself. I don't care whatever science books tell me. No one's gonna have a better knowledge of myself than me when it comes to how I feel. So when I eat meat, I feel really good. Now, I don't eat it like you exclusively, but it is in my diet. And when I have it, I feel good on it. And so I eat it for that reason. And the healthiest me is going to be best for the world. It's going to be the most balanced. It's going to be the person that's able to help other people. It's going to be the person that can go out there and change the world, even if it's one person at a time, So I look at it like that. Yeah, so I look at it like that. So why would I try and deplete myself and make myself... Some vegans go, some vegan put the other day, I'd even consider killing my own children if they ate meat. And I was like, did you see that?
No, I've seen stuff like this though. I got accused of child abuse and abusing my own children for feeding them meat. They're great. They're real healthy. My daughter's the only one who doesn't seem to have time off for sickness at school. She's, we take her out for 5 days when the vaccinations come. I don't even want the other kids sneezing on her after that. It's another total nonsense rabbit hole.
After they'll be shedding viruses, yeah.
But she's absolutely. And then it sort of feels a bit weird until you realise that actually, when you really deplete yourself of DHA and you start to have these kind of diets, there's no, the brain isn't being fed. There's no dopamine in the system. They're not really having any discrimination. Things go horribly wrong, and the mental issues are very, very common. I think it's probably quite controversial of me to say this, but the recent video of Sinead O'Connor having this horrendous meltdown in her hotel room, and people say, oh well, of course it was to do with her abuse as a kid. Yeah, sure, that was the ammunition, but what actually fired this ammunition was the long-term veganism, and she's also talking about lots of gut issues and multiple mental health problems. And this is very common with long-term vegans. And the longer they go on, the less likely they are to see it because they're so convinced they're on the right track. Their whole system falls down. Well, yeah. I was never that entrenched in it. I used it as a tool to see, is this the way to health? I found that it wasn't. But some are so stuck in it that they have very little chance of getting out, even when they get to a stage like that. And that's quite tragic, really. Yeah, I'm probably in trouble with that because people will say, no, she was abused, she was and I really sympathise with that. But my missus went through all kinds of horrendous things as a kid as well, and it doesn't necessarily have to end up that way. That sort of abuse of the body of long-term veganism will put that kind of thing under a microscope, and then take people's attention away from how intimately connected the gut is with mental health.
Oh, I always say to people that I think they've been showing studies that 80 to 90% of these mental health issues are related to the gut. I think it's your gut affects. I think it's your gut and your heart. I think they've got more. I'm trying to think. It's the microbiome in your gut and your heart. They affect your health even more than your brain does. It's amazing. And you're talking there like this is the thing with these people that have gone vegan. Generally, they've only been doing it for like 6 months, a year, 2 years. I'm dealing with people that have been vegan for 10 years and they're in a trouble, or even 2 years, or 3, 4, 5 years. Leah Keith was vegan for 20 years and she said she's done irreversible damage to her body. You know, these are not people that have been doing it for a long time, and so they're getting the benefits of it before the other things start coming in. And then they start to say, exactly. And then they start to say, well, you know, I can't be because of veganism because I've been really healthy. Yeah, you were healthy because your body was cleansing, and now the same thing that cured your cancer, for example, is giving you cancer because you're not nourished enough. And the one about us, I had one of my friends' girlfriends. We came around there, and she's like staunch vegan, and I'm not going to get into who it is because it's other things that are just like terrible for her health, but she's staunch vegan, etc., and that she wants her child to be vegan. And she said, "Oh, why haven't you read this book? Like, we're not even meant to digest meat. Like, we're not our guts, our enteric system isn't meant to digest meat." And I was like, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you. You've read a couple of books. I didn't say this, but I'm thinking you've read a couple of books on vegan, yeah, and you think that's the thing. I mean, I've read hundreds of books on different types, and I've listened to all these. I've got 54 hours of my own stuff out on the internet podcast. I've listened to 10,000 of different hours and all this stuff. Who do you reckon has a more well-rounded knowledge about this? Yeah, first of all, and second of all, there's a study. I think it was MD Byron who went around, and he actually noticed that the different tribes, if they were more exposed to meat and could eat meat, they actually had a shorter enteric system. So they had like gut lengths of 20 to 22 meters or foot. And then those that were eating more exclusively plants should have longer, like 30 to 40 meters. So our body is one of the only species on the planet where we get away with eating differently, and everyone can be healthy because our body can actually adapt with that. I'd say we're actually that sort of evolved where our body can adapt. So depending on whether you're eating meat, 20 to 22 meters foot. If you weren't, it was like 30 to 40 meters, and it was just showed that our system can adapt, and depending on what you eat, your physiology changes, and as you say, then your mental state changes, etc. So those studies, the people, they quote things and they haven't done the in-depth research. I say, I've been doing this 9 years and I still find out things. So when people come to me after a couple of months of doing things, I'm like, yeah, it's hard not to be. So you try and be nice and not to be arrogant about it, but it's like, I've been doing this 9 years and I'm still like finding things and researching. You're doing this 2 months.
Well, everybody eats, don't they? So they think they're an expert.
Right.
So
it's like I'm dealing with people who've got chronic issues. Not people that just try to get healthy, but people like yourself who've got chronic issues, whether it be gut, diabetes, whatever it be, you know. So things are different for those people, and you need to do the research. You need to actually be like you probably. This is my passion. So for me, listening to things and researching, it's not a chore. You know, it's actually fun.
Not. You get stuck in it for hours a day, don't you?
Yeah, it's fun.
And you realise that today I've probably done as much research into it as somebody else has done in their whole life, because you just get so passionate. Somebody will see 2 or 3 articles in the Daily Mail and away they go, you know. Oh, saturated fat might be okay for you. And the next day, eat more statins. And so, you know, it goes round and round and confuses them.
Aspartame as well.
But yeah, you do. I mean, the thing that's really clarified it for me now is this deuterium thing, because it's seen that...
So what is deuterium? So go for it, because our audience might not know what it is.
I'm a terrible old hippie, you know, and I'm no good at the science stuff, but I shall do my best. Well, deuterium is an extra isotope of hydrogen. So when attached to the hydrogen, it becomes heavy hydrogen. And when this is in water, a high percentage of this in water, it becomes D2O, you know, so you've got heavy water. And a lot of cancer researchers have found, well, not so much the research, that suggests the big pharma people, but a lot of the doctors who seem to be curing this, like there's an African-looking guy who's called Dr. Q, QUE, sounds like a Bond villain or something, but he's very cool, and he's had tremendous success with getting rid of cancer in people just from drinking various grades of deuterium-depleted water. So the explanation is that it stops when deuterium gets into the cell. It's like a fat guy stuck in a turnstile, as a friend of mine, Graham Norbury, pointed out to try and explain to my dummy mind about it. A fat guy stuck in the turnstile, nobody else can get through, you know, at a tube station or something. So it stops the cell turning over, stops the redox potential. The cell isn't respirating. It's not turning over its water, and so things go wrong. It becomes confused. Deuterium is also pro-growth, so it's great for kids. It's great in the womb. Its fruit is full of deuterium. So it's part of the reproductive cycle. But when you put it into an adult, then it causes excess growth of cells, it causes aging, it causes autoimmune diseases. All of these confusions that the body go through because the cellular signaling isn't working. So, right, what's low in deuterium? Well, as foods, okay, what's high in deuterium? Fruits, very high in deuterium. All processed foods, carbohydrates, grains, all of the things that generally cause these problems that people notice for other reasons, go, oh, it's inflammatory or it ruins the gut. It does all these things. But at the root of it, what's actually going on at a cellular level? Okay, it's high in deuterium. Maybe there will be another much better lens to look at this through than this, but this is the best one I've found recently. It really ties everything in. So what's really low in deuterium? Well, basically animals that have eaten what they're supposed to have eaten, fish, animal fats, saturated fats. These even cause the body to make its own deuterium-depleted water. Think of a camel hump. It's not full of water, it's full of fat, and this is how they hydrate themselves. So, depleting deuterium, Jack Cruz would get cross with me if I didn't say at this point and stress, it's not about diet, it's about light. And if you're in the sun, you can get away with a lot more because the biggest depleter of deuterium in the body is sunlight.
Always talk about that.
Yeah,
the sun's phenomenal.
And the sun does pretty much everything. So then what do? We cover our eyes up with sunglasses, we cover our skin up with sun creams, and out we go, and get burned all day long. And this is causing the skin cancer problem. And so lack of vitamin D, the deuterium buildup, everything. You can see it in vegetarians and vegans at a certain age, and you can never quite tell what the age is going to be. But if they persist at it, like I have a lot of friends in the community here, and I'll see them and they'll look kind of okay for years, and then suddenly I'll run into them again. I haven't seen them for a year, and it'll be in Asda or something, and they'll go, "Wow, you used to be so ill. How have you done it? How have you got well?" And I point into my trolley and I point into their trolley, and I've realized I hardly recognize them, and I cannot say this back to them that they look good because the skin's gray, because the teeth are falling out. There's actual brown stumps of teeth, and this is their diet that they think is healthy, that they persist with it over and over. And they could not possibly, because Maharishi once said that you shouldn't eat meat or something, So it's just this ridiculous business brought over by the gurus as well. The brainwashing is coming from all angles. And when you see it in the light of this deuterium, you can see that in the north of England, they're eating a high grain-based diet in the cold. They're not getting enough sun. They're not getting out there. They're probably staring into their computer screens late at night. So the circadian signaling's all over the place. To actually put it right, once you've dug through all the dogma, it's actually pretty simple to get an ideal day together in whatever environment you're in. Like Jack always says that you'll never cure anything completely in the postcode that you got ill in. So yes, to get optimal, you might well have to move down to the Yucatan and get the best of all the light, water, and magnetism. As a friend of mine's just done, to go and buy like 500 acres out there and set up a whole self-sufficient place. And we're very tempted to go down and build a house on the land.
No, I'm not surprised. Nice. Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, so in the north, so what can you do? You can eat really high-fat, low-carb foods. Whether you get away with, leafy greens are low in deuterium. This is how a plant depletes the deuterium. So they are low deuterium. This is probably another reason why the Gerson therapy works. But the fibers in it can be a problem if somebody has digestive issues. So maybe if you want that stuff out of the green leaves, juice it rather than eat them. I'm always a fan of saying we have teeth. Why do we need to juice? But in certain cases,
people don't chew enough. Though that's the thing. I always say, one of the people always ask me at my seminars, they say, "What's the most common thing that you find?" And I always say, if you do one thing, it's like the Taoists say, drink your food and chew your water. Because you got your spleen energy in your mouth, and people don't chew. I say, run your tongue on the side of your mouth. Yeah, that's the same as it is in your gut. You've got no teeth down there, So you need to chew your food. You need to masticate it. And most people just bang, 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 swallow it, and they wonder when they've got issues, or they don't notice it for a while. But you haven't got the teeth down there, and most people are so depleted with the hydrochloric acid and all other things, and then they've got the wrong back. They've got gut symbiosis going on. So it's just a nightmare for most people. But I always talk about the French paradox. I always say, the French, they drink loads of wine, they eat loads of cheese, pasta, bread, and whatever. But it's a thing that one of the most leanest nations in Europe, because when they eat, they take their time and they relax, rather than we eat while working at the desk, then, or in the car driving or whatever. We're not thinking, and then we don't chew because we just wolf it down, which is huge. And
I was thinking about that the other day, and again reading this Stephenson book, and I just wonder if this is again another pointer towards the fact of how easy meat is to digest, because definitely when you're eating all the plant matter and stuff like that, chew it as much as possible, start the digestion process. This starts in the mouth, and people don't realize that. But then he was saying that the Inuit, they sort of bung a bit of meat in their mouth, chew it twice, and then swallow it. And you think, oh, okay, interesting. And it just it got me thinking. I wonder
how cooked was it? How cooked was it? Was it cooked?
Well, some of it's raw, isn't it?
Raw,
Some
Some
of it's raw, some of it's cooked. They do both. He says that they might eat raw meat one day because they can't be asked to get up and cook or whatever if they're moving around. And then other days, then they'll cook it and they boil it and they have all kinds of different ways of eating it. But they don't anymore because they eat grains and they're all sick, because our stupid diet's got everywhere. But again, it's if you look again at all the cultures and what they ate across the latitudes, again, it ties in with deuterium. If you're in the cold and you're not getting enough sun on your skin to deplete it, you're going to need a really high-fat, low-carb diet to deplete that deuterium in the cells. If you're not doing it, then you're just piling in more and more. If you're eating all this healthy fruit in the winter and someone's told you to do that, then it's just increasing deuterium constantly. So what is a health food and what isn't? This has always amused me about the paleo crowd. Is it paleo? Well, where do you live? What's your inflammatory history? Where it's not a matter of is a banana paleo. It entirely depends where you are on the planet.
Well, this is the thing you're talking about. You've got people sitting there saying, I'm eating paleo. They're sitting there eating like cocktail sausages and processed meat. I'm like, yeah, mate, that's really paleo. or you got other people, they're trying to learn from a vegan. They're going vegan because their guru's vegan. And they don't realise their guru's been like born and raised in India, and it's completely different. As you say, different culture, different background, different climate to what you have as your genetic predisposition, So this is people need to understand this and do what. So the thing we come back around to is do what works for you, right?
Yeah. With a view to. So how do you find out what works for you? Mostly by looking at what nature would give you and then fine tuning it with your own intuition. So if you have like ancestral knowledge plus some good intuition, you can ignore every diet guru in the world because it's all nonsense. And again, the deuterium thing, how to deplete it in the north is cold thermogenesis. Get in the cold. This is again very deuterium depleting. What's happening when you're putting a bag of ice or peas on a joint? Oh, it's calming down the inflammation. Yeah, but how does it do that? It's more than likely that it's allowing the cells to sort themselves out quicker than they otherwise would. Which is again why athletes now are getting into this cryogenics and whatever it's called, to recover quickly. They're getting in cold baths as well, and it really helps with recovery of the muscles.
Wim Hof sort of stuff is
absolutely, yeah. And I mean, look what it's done to his immune system.
Yeah, you can fight off a virus, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Inject a live virus into him and he's breathing. This is why I say it was at the power. Yeah. It's another thing as well. If someone really does believe in veganism. The power of the mind's huge, and it does well for them. That's brilliant until the body starts to actually give out. But the power of the mind's huge, and so is like the breathing and other things we're doing. As you say, like it's a huge. There's so much to talk about around it because you say your intuition and sort of knowing yourself and understanding that things aren't black and white. Things are not always going to be this way. You might react to one thing, and the sun is so phenomenal. Like I actually recommend like sunbeds for my clients, certain sunbeds. Low-powered UVB, ones that they've got electronic ballast, not magnetic ballast. Dr. McCullough talked about this for years before they went to town him and had to take all his stuff off his website because they said it was against the FDA or whatever. He got sued for millions for it. I think he fought him in court for ages. But you don't get enough sun over here this time of year from whatever. So I say 6 to 8 minutes once a week. You're going to get. Nothing can compete with UVA, UVB light. I know it's artificial, but it's not the same. If you can go away on holiday, brilliant. And as you say, people putting so much stuff on their skin. But this is why so much of this around. It's why it's so much more than just diet. But diet's a huge part because people are going to be eating 2-3 times a day, or maybe more. Some people are eating 7 times a day. You think, oh my god, when you're giving your body a rest.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to let it get into a bit of autophagy, haven't you?
And that's the thing,
absolutely. But Yeah, I think the way to deal with it when you are stuck in the cold, though, is to feel the seasons. If you are in the winter in the north, then get out in the cold. If it's snowing, yes, get out, go on, run around, see how long you can stand with your feet there. Then go and put some shoes on and stand there and have a bit of a shiver walk, roll around.
They do it in Russia, there with the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
You see people writing underneath on the comments, this is just child abuse. No. This is why
they were the
get
healthiest.
Ill.
They're laughing. They're great, aren't they? I've seen that vid.
Yeah.
And they were the class that had no absenteeism from illness that year. Well, why is that? You know, they're feeling the seasons. We are wild animals. Well, we're zoo animals now, but we've just got to have a way of fooling the body that it is still in its natural environment, and that's not actually that difficult to do. We can have the best of both worlds. People go, "Oh well, we're not cavemen. We can't do this. We can't do that." But no, we can't. But we can do the best we can. And it involves a little bit of discomfort. People go, "Oh, I could never have a cold shower." But actually, if you really get into it, it's only the first couple of seconds that's a problem. Then you stand there, you get this glowing feeling, then you start to shiver, you get out. That's it. You know, you don't go past that. It's not a matter of chilling the core temperature.
Yeah.
But the amazing benefits that doing that through the winter has, not just, a little bit of a cool shower when you're sweaty in the summer, just actually get into cold showers in the winter and just see what it does for you.
Even to stand outside, I think, sometimes. Yeah. Just stand
Absolutely.
outside.
Just wearing less than you do. Turn the central heating down a bit. You know, wear fewer clothes. My little boy, the one who just went out just before we spoke, I always say to him, "Do you want a Coke?" "No." "Fine. Absolutely fine." I'm the one running around with the kid. He's in like a t-shirt or sort of a long sleeve t-shirt like this while it's cold and there's snow on the ground. And the other parents probably think, "Oh, he's so cruel." But no, I'm really happy with it. If he's comfy with it, that's cool. Because he's feeling the seasons, and this is great for the immune system.
Yeah, we weren't born with central heating, and it's one of the things like it stimulates the autonomic nervous system, the vascular tree. It's phenomenal for like testosterone. It's boosts the immune system. It's obviously you say straight away. Most people are massively inflamed. It calms inflammation. It's phenomenal. Like there's so many things for it, Phil. I mean,
when I was really sick, I used to absolutely hobble into the bathroom, have a 10-minute cold bath, and just dance out. It was that quick. It was spectacular. I got obsessed with it that winter. I used to just roll around in the snow and everything.
You know the best thing about it as well, Phil?
What?
It's free.
Yes, exactly.
You know, sleep.
Most of the things are.
Sleep, free.
Yeah.
You can throw herbs at people and different diets at people all day long and whatever, but unless you actually sleep, you'll never realise your full potential. Your immune system will never be as strong as it can be, and you'll just be pissing in the wind, you know. And people like you got people like, much as I love all these gurus like Tony Robbins out there talking about things, and Gary Vaynerchuk, I think his name is, or whatever it is, that they're brilliant about talking to people about growing businesses and doing whatever. A lot of them say, "Oh, you need 4 or 5 hours of sleep." We keep doing that and see where you're at. For a year or two.
It's nuts, isn't it?
Sleep is just like the body's best way to rejuvenate and repair itself. You know. I
just did a video actually of the 10 top tips for sleep, and I got a blog post with about 23 of them. But it started for me when I was really sick and only sleeping a few minutes here and there. And then I remember the first night that I put orange shades on, and then had a cold bath. And I went to bed shivering, think I wasn't even going to sleep a moment. And I woke up 11 hours later. You know, I was so desperate for sleep. And finally it allowed me to do it because I'd finally allowed my body to trigger some melatonin in the evening.
Did you wake up with wood as well?
Obviously, constantly.
That's the thing.
Since this, it seems to be just going back to 17 in that department again.
No, because it says it's one of the things it does. It releases testosterone. It increases sex drive and libido. It's a cold. Whenever I go away on holiday, the first thing I do, I get up in the morning and I go and just jump in the cold sea for like 5 minutes.
Oh yes,
I always do that. Yeah, always do it. Phil, I know we've kept you for like an hour and 10 minutes here. I want to get you back on the show because we've got a lot more to talk about as well, and I think we can be here all day long. I know you've got a busy day, so guys out there, pureactivity.net for Phil. Go and find his book on Kindle, Arthritis, the best thing that ever happened to me. And Phil, we'll be getting you back on, mate, and we keep in touch. And you can also find him on Facebook. What's the best place on Facebook to find you, Phil?
Well, just find me or find my Pure Activity page, or if you want to come and join in, it's really fun actually. It's very irreverent, and it's my Facebook group that I started at the end of December just to help about 3 or 4 friends out with trying this carnivore diet for a month. and it's absolutely exploded. I think there's about 1,400 on there at the moment, and within 2 months. And
what's it called?
Sean, 100% carnivore and beyond.
Okay.
And Sean Baker's on there, Jack Cruz is on there, Paul Mabry, wonderful zero carb doc with a huge, great blog there, very wise guy.
You have to link me up with a few of these guys so I can get them on the show and get this information out to more people. I know Jack Cruz and Sean, and we'll get them on. A
great guy to have on as well would be Graham Norbury, a friend of mine who really, really, he came to one of my early ancestral health talks that I do sometimes, and he walked in with orange shades on. I thought, hang on, this guy knows something. And he's really studied all of this, and for somebody to talk about the real ins and outs of light and deuterium,
it's quite a cool look as well. It's quite a cool look. Like, people think you're mad, but if you walk around with orange shades on at night, people think you're mad, but it's quite a cool look.
yeah. Well, you're seeing it more and more now. You're seeing it more and more.
100%. You are. Candles at night, things like that. I mean,
it's what we do. We got candles at night. We got orange bulbs, red bulbs upstairs. We've even got a screen that we put with Velcro over the front of the TV, so that if the kids do turn it on, the blue's taken out of that.
What was the thing I wanted to put for our audience out there? What was the thing? Iris. Is it Iris?
Iris, yeah.
Is it Iris? I'm trying to think. I think it's Iris, isn't it? Is the thing for doing your
That's
computer.
Yeah. So much better than Flux.
Yeah.
It's got great. There's a link to it under that recent thing I did. If you go to my YouTube channel, there's quite a few vids appearing on there. There's a link to the Iris underneath that, and to some good shades too, actually. But it's an amazing program, and it deals with flicker as well, which I think is very important, which Flux doesn't do.
Awesome.
Lots of good toys out there too. It's easy, isn't it? Go out in the morning, get the sun in your eyes, get your bare feet on the ground, eat when you're hungry, preferably some much lower carb than most people are used to anyway, and get some midday sun, and get some orange shades on in the evening, keep the blue light out of your eyes. It's really not rocket science, It's that simple. And it's taken me 35 years of studying this to think it's really actually that simple.
It's that simple. And when you listen to your body, don't just listen to the dogma or the scientific studies. Listen to yourself and know yourself. And once the problem is, talk about it with Jason. Talk about, most people are so toxic they don't even know what to believe anymore. But it's one of those things. Phil, we're going to get you back on. So it's www.pureactivity.net. Obviously, as I said before, arthritis, the best thing ever happened to me, and 100% carnivore.
And beyond
yes. On Facebook. Okay,
it's a fun group, not for delicate flowers.
That's right.
It's cool. It's great.
Few snowflakes. It's awesome.
Nice, yeah.
But Phil, thanks very much, mate, and we'll get you back on in the future. It's been awesome talking to you.
You too, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me on.
No worries, mate. Speak soon.
So, guys, that was Phil Escott talking all about reversing arthritis, and we talked about a lot of different health issues there. We got into a lot of different topics, and it was an awesome conversation. I want to get more into him with the carnivore diet. I'm going to get a few other people in his 100% carnivore group on. It's going to be brilliant. I mean, it was a real powerful conversation that covers so many different topics, and I'm sure you got lots and lots from it. Phil, we're going to get Phil back on. In fact, it was my fault we actually had to cut the interview a little bit short there. I had another appointment booked in to speak with someone, so it was my fault. We're going to get him back on because I could talk to Phil for a lot longer, and we'll be going through lots of different issues that he's dealt with, especially really powerful, talking about his son and his family and how it's affected them when they went vegan, etc. So brilliant interview, and as I said before, you can find him at pureactivity.net, and we will be getting him back on. So guys, that was episode 55. As always, we mentioned before, any issues you've got, any health issues, guys, you've got and you want help with, head on over to www.reviveyourself.co. Lots of articles in there. Also, if you want one-to-one help, click the contact, fill out the form, and we'll get in touch within 24 to 48 hours. Obviously, we've got a free 4-day mini course in there. You can follow us on Facebook at Revive Yourself /natural health. We're on Instagram, Revive_yourself. And, I've got my personal page on Facebook as well. You can find me. Blue, it's the same as I said before, the podcast logo, blue background, me drinking a smoothie, Revive Yourself. That's Ryan Martin. You'll find me on there if you want to follow. Otherwise, guys, that's it for this week. can't wait to get the next week's show going for you. Always love doing these interviews. Something I really enjoy doing, and I hope you enjoy listening to. Oh yeah, 5-star reviews, guys, if you can, on iTunes. It'd be brilliant, wherever you're listening from. And even on our Facebook page, the more 5-star reviews we get, the more people, the more information we'll be able to get out to people, so we can start changing more lives. That's what I really want to do. I want to try and impact as many people as possible, try and get information out to stop people suffering. Because, when I think about it and think about all the people that are in needless pain, it just really, really makes me emotional, and I just know we can help so many more people. So by getting it out, so if you can share the podcast with people, all our information with people, the website with people, 5-star reviews would be great. Anything we can do just to get the information and about natural health and living a natural life and changing people's lives around as much as possible, that would be great. Otherwise, guys, as I said before, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye-bye.
If you're struggling with gut issues, such as gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, heartburn, and want to finally be able to eat the foods you love without the crippling after effects, then don't forget to head over to reviveyourself.co and pick up your free copy of The Healing Health Paradigm today.